From the director of Freddy vs. Jason and the writer of all things Child's Play comes a romantic comedy as sharp as a bloodied knife. Join JoBlo Horror as we take the party bus on a road trip with our favorite good guy in Bride of Chucky.
Welcome to Horror Party Movies, everyone, where we take a horror film, good or bad, and we make a fun little game out of it. I'm Mike Conway, and today we are traveling back to 1998 to party with Bride of Chucky.
Bride of Chucky follows Tiffany, the ex-girlfriend of serial killer Charles Lee Ray. After being torn to shreds in Child's Play 3, Chucky's former flame stitches him back together and A-Day Deweys him back to life to keep that romance going. However, after an argument, Chucky kills Tiffany and transfers her soul into a bridal doll. Now on a quest to find a magical amulet to restore them into human form, the pair arrange a road trip with Tiffany's neighbor and his girlfriend, who are unaware of the living killer dolls.
So what type of party is Bride of Chucky? Well, according to this scale, it looks like this party is pretty killer. And as always, I want to show you how to make a drink to tie along with the movie, and I'll show you that beverage right after these credits.
As with any game, there are basic rules you must follow. Keeping in line with horror tropes, take a drink when someone drinks or does drugs, someone screams, when there is a jump scare, when a car won't start, when there's a clumsy escape, and finally, with any kill. If you are more of an advanced partier, add these modifications to your list. When Tiffany mentions anything about her mother, when Martha Stewart is mentioned, with any other horror movie reference. And finally, when Tiffany says, sweet face. If alcohol isn't your bag, there are plenty of other things to choose from. Cannabis if legal in your state, Delta 8, 9, 10, or whatever the hell number they're at now. Caffeine, hot sauce, anything. Just know your tolerance. This is supposed to be fun. We don't want to send you to the hospital. Basically, don't be a dumbass. Here, read this disclaimer if it helps.
So slap on those Jinkos and tighten up those Doc Martens as we take a trip back to 1998 to see if this romance is just as awkward as I was that year in high school.
It's showtime!
The movie opens with a little taste of America at the Lockport Evidence Depository, which houses quite a bit of the horror memorabilia such as Michael Myers' mask, Freddy's glove, Leatherface's chainsaw, and the Jason knockoff mask you can pick up at any Dollar General within a 2-mile radius. There, we have this dipwad of a police officer snatching a bag from one of the lockers before speeding off in the rain. Yo, those hands aren't at 9 and 3, homeboy. He then calls the person he's delivering the bag to. 9 and 3, my dude. 9 and 3. While waiting at the rendezvous point, the nosy crooked cop attempts to take a peek at what he's delivering. However, he quickly learns he has the right to remain silent for good. Who is the other person, you may ask? No other than Tiffany Valentine, played by the amazing Jennifer Tilly. She then removes the item from the bag, revealing it to be none other than the destroyed Chucky doll. Apparently, this flick takes place 1 month after Child's Play 3, and quite honestly, after revisiting them recently, I have many questions as to how this doll is still intact. You know, after being completely torn to shreds at the end of that film? But really, who gives a shit when you have the kick-ass Living Dead Girl by Rob Zombie blasting through the speakers?
When this movie came out when I was in high school, I was completely obsessed with the soundtrack. I mean, you got bands like Typo Negative, Cold Chamber, Static X, fucking Slayer, as my man Jose Mangan would say. I mean, I can go on and on and on about how much I love the music in this film, but let's get back to the movie.
Tiffany takes the shreds back to her trailer park home to give it the old stitcheroo until it comes into Chucky's most iconic look. We then cut to the other cast of characters where a high schooler comes and knocking on the door of the chief of police, Warren, played by the late, great John Ritter. Back when I first saw this, I was totally mind blown that this guy was in a horror movie. The high schooler David is there to pick up John Ritter's niece Jade, while in turn, he picks up on David's stereotypical gay tropes.
Playing hockey? Figure skating.
A young Katherine Heigl plays Jade before she got her big break in mediocre rom-coms. As it turns out, David is in fact gay and acts as a plant to distract her strict uncle from her true love, bad boy Jesse. Things get all hot and heavy, but their makeout session quickly gets cut short by Officer Needlenose, sent out by her uncle Warren, who has a hairline just like mine if I decide to let my hair grow out. Skull Shaver, feel free to sponsor me anytime. You'd think Warren would be somewhat compassionate compared to the other John Ritter roles, but here he is the complete asshole who feels stuck with Jade and compares Jesse to trailer park trash.
You fuck.
But you won't. Not Jade anyway, not anymore.
Damn! Back in the trailer, Tiffany takes a page out of her Voodoo for Dummies to recite the famous Damballa curse on her old flame, but is having a hard time getting it to work. Well, no shit, you aren't pronouncing it right. An unrecognizable Alexis Arquette, who plays her Crow cosplaying boyfriend Damien, then shows up at the door. He shows her some Polaroids of some nasty looking kills he claims to have just committed to try to win her heart.
Who is it?
You mean who was it?
Which would have worked until she noticed it was actually him in the photos. I mean, shit man, can you blame him? Oof. Tiffany sees her spell actually worked when Chucky has suddenly gone missing, which leads her to trap him for Damien. She then ties him up on the bed, which he assumes is some kind of kink, but instead of being all for Damien, is all for Chucky, and for the audience if I'm being honest. Tiffany tells the Jerry Seinfeld from Pulp Fiction about how Chucky and her were once lovers and how jealous he would get if anyone would look at her. After joking about the size of Chucky, the doll of the hour finally comes to life with a one-liner.
Ain't the size that counts, asshole. It's what you do with it.
Chucky then makes sure Damien will
Be silent. Be still.
while sitting on his face with a pillow as he reconnects with Tiffany. Oh, look at the widow guy as she picks him up. So cute. While searching for Chucky for 10 years, she has been waiting to settle down and start a family, even wearing a ring that she thought was left for her. But Chucky has other intentions.
You mean you weren't gonna ask me to marry you?
What are you, fucking nuts?
Crushed by this revelation, she realizes he won't change and keeps him a prisoner in her playpen. The next day, Tiffany gets Jesse, who's her neighbor, to help load up a box containing Damien's remains. She gets a little flirty.
I was thinking maybe you and I could go get a drink or something.
He turns her down like a dumbass and tells her he's already in love, to which she gives him some advice.
It's like my mother always used to say, a woman spends all day slaving over a hot stove for a man, the least he can do is the dishes.
Hold up. So Jesse lives alone in the trailer park and is obviously old enough to drink. Why is he dating a 17-year-old high schooler? That's creepy, bro. I'm sorry guys, but the older I get, the more I understand where her uncle is coming from. Anywho, while still locked in the playpen, Tiffany surprises Chucky with a present, a bridal doll, who not only looks like Jennifer Tilly with dark hair, but also conveniently has her unique voice. She takes a relaxing bubble bath while watching a movie this flick takes many cues from when Chucky finally escapes. In a very cool looking scene, Chucky kills Tiffany by pushing the TV set into the tub and electrocuting her. Oh, little man loves his bubbles. He then proceeds to Ade Dewey Tiffany's soul into the doll. How does she feel about this? Tell him, Tom.
She was a little more than pissed about it.
He explains to her the only way they can get back into human form is to travel to the gravesite of Charles Lee Ray to dig up the body and remove the Heart of Damballa amulet. Apparently he was wearing it when he got shot at the beginning of the first film, but you know, what the hell, we can overlook that. In order to get across the states, Tiffany phones up Jesse. He demands to do it for $1,000, which he thinks he can use to run away with Jade. Tiff then ditches the wedding garb and gives herself a makeover we all know. After Jesse picks up the dolls, he hauls ass to Jade's house to give her the news about his new income, which, in his mind, is the equivalent of what I thought was $1,000 when I was 5.
There's another 500 when we get there. I can put a deposit on an apartment. I'll help put you through college.
He also thinks this is more than enough for the pair to get married. What these two don't realize, you know, other than she may need parental consent to get married at 17, was that Warren was spying on them the entire time. However, our dolls notice and begin to prepare how to take care of the problem. Chucky has it covered, but Tiffany wants to take this pinhead out of style. You know, this would make a pretty killer mask. Hop on at Trick or Treat Studios.
What do we do with him?
I don't know. What would Martha Stewart do?
The couple then head off on their road trip, but it quickly runs into a roadblock when Officer Needlenose catches up with them at the most happening convenience store in the US. Jesse tells her he'll take care of the situation and sends her off to grab some snacks for the road. But when Needlenose searches the van, he almost finds Warren's body until Chucky decides to distract him with a stash he's been smoking on.
Shit!
While Needlenose is in the car to report Jesse, Chucky sneaks out to shove a piece of clothing in the gas tank and lights it. Smelling the smoke, the crooked cop looks ahead to see the dolls waving at him just before the whole thing explodes. Seeing the explosion, Jade and Jesse hightail it the fuck out of there and also have their first premarital spat, accusing each other of being cop killers.
I think you're fucking crazy.
Yep, that's really one sure way to get her to stay with you. Really, it worked and knocked up.
You are a crazy bitch!
Their first official stop on the Killer Love Tour is at a wedding chapel in a sleazeball motel where the pair tie the knot.
I think we make a cute couple.
They're mediocre at best, just like the music scene in 1998. While Chucky jams out to White Zombie's Thunder Kiss 65, Warren busts out of the container he was in, which lets Chucky finally get to jam his knife into Warren. Classic. Soon after, a con artist couple busts in the room who seemingly want Jade and Jesse to partake in a freak fest, but really they are there to steal Jesse's money. This doesn't fly with Tiffany, so she heads to their room, which she throws a bottle on top of the overhead mirror, which shatters and kills the couple. Isn't it funny how real CGI looked back then? I'm being totally serious. I really thought that looked kind of neat. This immediately makes Chucky feel like Pinocchio in his good guy parts, and the two get right down to the promise of the movie's tagline. The next morning, the maid pops in to clean the dead couple's room.
What the heck went on here?
Oh, it's just a little hocus pocus. Seeing the bloody mess, Jade and Jesse again flee the crime scene, but not before their friend David meets them. He knows for a fact that the pair had nothing to do with any of the killings that have been going on, and decides to tag along for moral support. But then he smells something a little funky coming from the back of the van, where he finds the dead body of Warren. He demands to have the van be pulled over and then pulls a gun on the newlyweds. As he backs away in fear of seeing the dolls come to life, a motherfucking semi-truck plows right into him. Holy shit. Back in the late 90s and 2000s, this type of kill was severely overplayed, but that didn't mean I didn't see this one coming. Chucky explains to the couple how they all got to where they are now, and the unfortunate situation they have gotten themselves into.
In fact, if it was a movie, it would take 3 or 4 sequels just to do it justice.
Since Jesse and Jade have now made the news and every cop in the area is looking for them, they ditched the van for a camper originally owned by some old folks. Tiffany then begins to give Jade a makeover to her liking since she's about to take over her body, while also baking Chucky some fresh hot cookies. This doll's got it all, folks. Remembering the conversation with Tiffany earlier about the dishes, Jesse takes this opportunity to let Chucky know how shitty of a housekeeper she is.
Those dishes aren't gonna wash themselves, you know.
This starts a huge but pretty adorable argument that leads to Jade kicking Tiffany into the oven and the RV crashing off the road. She ends up busting out the oven and attacks Jade, but Jesse comes in to the rescue and yeets her out the window. The pair jump out of the door of the RV just before it explodes. You know, this is missing something.
Hell yeah!
Hey, the RV crashed right at the cemetery. How about that? Chucky takes Jade hostage, kills the poor son of a bitch digging up the grave of Charles E. Ray, and forces Jade to open the coffin to grab the amulet.
You really didn't need to see that.
Now, with the power of Damballa, Chucky begins the body swapping curse, but Tiffany suddenly has a change of heart by quitting her favorite movie.
We belong dead.
And really, if Tiffany had watched the previous movies, she would have known by now that you just don't fuck with a Chuck. The dolls then begin to fight to the death, and apparently the power of Damballa let them grow a couple feet. The fight ends with Chucky stabbing Tiffany, killing her. Jesse then shows up and tells Chucky to eat a shovel sandwich and knocks him into the grave. Suddenly, a detective shows up, and he sees the real person behind the killings. And if you Five Nights at Freddy fans shit yourselves when William Afton said the line, remember our good guy said it first.
I always come back!
With the death of Chucky, Jesse and Jade are free to go. Do they live happily ever after? Who cares, because there's a seed of Chucky coming out this motherfucker.
And that is it. Bride of Chucky came out in 1998 and opened up number 2 just behind Practical Magic. The Child's Play series is my all-time favorite horror franchise, with this one in particular being my all-time favorite. Is it the best one? Who knows? But it's a personal favorite of mine because it's the first R-rated film I've ever snuck into.
A true classic. Never goes out of style.
And last but not least, if you want a music recommendation and you like Child's Play as much as I do, check out Ice Nine Kills and the song Assault and Batteries. Until next time, guys, have a good one.